when they bring the person up and the guy's got his hand over him, a lot of times he's using a form of conversational hypnosis, and then when he hits them, they go under. That's why they drop. And that's very common with Pentecostals, is that practice.
Hey, welcome back to the Brewery Ministries podcast. This is the third and final part of the conversation with hypnotist Evan Reida. We're talking about miracles, supernatural events, and why we don't see them as often today, why some people seem to be able to heal people and others can't. So it's going to be really interesting. It's a very mysterious subject. So if you missed parts 1 and 2, I'm going to put a link in the description so you can go back and watch those. Without any further ado, we're going to jump right back into the interview with Evan. So here we go. You know, something happened to me right before the pandemic that I, in hindsight, wondered if that was God doing something. I lost my last job, right? I think I told you I got let go from a church. So at that time, I thought, well, I don't know if I want to go right back into ministry. Maybe I want a break. So I got together a marketing resume. I could do online marketing, Facebook ads, all that stuff. And I put together this portfolio. And I contacted almost 100 businesses. I walked into a bunch. I made phone calls. I sent emails. I applied. All kinds of stuff, just trying to see if I could do some marketing for somebody, right? Because I have a degree in marketing. It's music marketing, but still a form of marketing, right? So I didn't even get a single call back. And so I walked to this church down the street and I told them, I said, hey, look, I just got let go from this church and this is why. And I'm also going through a divorce. I understand if you don't want to take me on, but I just want to be honest about where I'm at. I didn't think they were going to hire me. And they did. Well, what happens after that was the pandemic comes along, right? All these places I was trying to market for were like restaurants, local businesses. They all closed for months. So had I gotten any of those jobs, I would have been out of work probably again, like, just a couple months later or a few months later. And I wondered, because the job I got into was very stable and it helped me get my feet under me. They were supportive of what I was going through. And I just don't know if that would have worked out if I'd gotten one of those other 100 jobs I was applying for, And, maybe I wasn't qualified experience-wise yet to do marketing, but I sure wondered if, God was, saving my tail or something. Because when I moved back into my house, I did not have enough money to miss a month of paychecks. My house was going to have to go up for sale if I had a lapse in work. So, I don't know. Do you think that qualifies as a supernatural event, or is it coincidence, or what do you think?
I think, yeah, you could call it that. I know that if you were in the law of attraction crowd, they would definitely call that, so they would call it supernatural.
So how does that work? How does the law of attraction work for stuff like that?
So the law of attraction is a process in which you use your mind to put yourself in what they usually call a vibration or a state that allows you to bring in the things that you desire for your life. So they call it manifesting. And that's done through meditation. It can be done through vision boards, or if you've ever seen The Secret, that's kind of an old reference now, but it's really just a way of changing, or I would say controlling your mind in a way that's beneficial to bring the things into your life that you really want.
Is that basically kind of like praying with just a different name?
very similar, yeah. But
Because I personally have no doubt that if a person is thinking about those things, God might hear that and might honor some of that, even if they don't think that they're praying to God or realize it.
yeah, it's a very interesting practice. And I've had a good amount of success with it. I actually, one of the things that I coach is actually law of attraction. But I go from, instead of a emotional level, I come at it from an identity level. But that would be a whole other show. But, you know, I get people's identity in line so they have the emotions and the thoughts, and it all trickles down from there.
Oh, okay. It's like the food pyramid, but
Yeah.
with your identity.
Yeah. I mean, you can get into personal beliefs and all that kind of, limiting beliefs, and there's a lot that goes to it, but the basics are just getting your mind and yourself aligned with what you want in life.
Interesting, yeah. So, to tie up this question of why aren't there supernatural events today, I myself have not really decided what I think about this yet, because I've heard that there are a lot more supernatural events over in other countries like Haiti and Africa, and I do think I believe they happen. Of course, I think God could do anything. I've mentioned I've known a couple people who had some kind of miraculous healing, or a tumor disappeared. One guy who was older had a knee injury for, couldn't walk for like 9 months, and one day he's like running. I'm like, huh? So I know they exist. I know someone might be able to be like Peter in the Bible and heal someone else. I think my biggest skepticism is that I'm not sure if I could, even though I believe in God. I have a hard time believing that I could heal someone or be the vessel, I guess, because we think it's God doing the healing. And I don't know if God does as many large-scale supernatural things, as he did in the Old Testament. I don't see anything happening like Jericho or the Red Sea being split. So the way I could solve this for myself is either they're happening and I'm just not seeing them, because I figure they were probably rare in the Old Testament, they're just condensed. Or maybe God did more during the Bible times because he's on this mission to manage the creation of the Bible along with humans. They're partnering to bring this thing together, so God's managing it, doing miracles. And once that happens and Jesus comes, then there's less of a need for them, maybe, because we've got the Bible that's available. So I could see there being less miracles, or I could see I just don't know about them as much, or I could see, well, maybe we're actually supposed to be doing some of this and the art's just been lost, So I guess I'm kind of undecided on how all that works, but I like to think about it.
Yeah. Well, there's still cold miracles in the Bible too.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would almost indicate that it wasn't common, even during that time.
Ah, good point.
But I'm undecided on a lot of those things too, just because there aren't a lot of modern examples that are as clear cut.
Mm-hmm. There's one I can think of, and it was probably from the 2013 to 2015 area. I read this article about a missile that was fired at Israel, and it just mysteriously last minute blew way off course, but there wasn't wind or something at the time. I don't know. I read that article from a pretty reliable news source, and I thought, well, was this some kind of nature phenomenon, or was it a miracle, or did God use natural phenomenon like some random gust of wind on a calm day to do this? I don't know.
think I remember that. Didn't it turn around and go back where it came from?
I don't know. I mean, it went way off course. I mean, I remember watching a video about it. I was like, what the heck? So it was definitely an unusual, highly unusual phenomenon.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. That was, yeah. I heard a lot of people freaking out about that too. Had a lot of Christian friends were like, "Oh, did you hear that story?" I was like, "I guess it's making a comeback."
Yeah, I saw it on Facebook or something. I was like, wow.
But yeah.
Well, do you want to do one more, or is it getting
sure.
late for you? Okay.
I can do that.
Well, I've got one backup question. Is there anything that you would want to discuss? Like anything come to mind during this?
I don't know. I mean, I guess, in the vein of miracles, you were asking the question about why, I guess in America or in developed countries, you don't hear about it as often. And I think my previous explanation, would hold some weight, but I also think there's something to be said about being able to be open to that kind of stuff happening. Being somewhat in harmony with it. And that theory, for me, comes from the way the Bible talks about having faith so things can happen, and looking at some of the mystery schools I've studied. They talk about being in harmony with, with God or with this force or whatever. They give credit to these miracles. So I wonder if, as a whole, the church needs to move back into harmony with those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in theory, we would see a lot more. The question is how to do it.
Yeah.
That's my theory. Is why can't most people do it? Well, can they bring themselves into harmony with God and move that through them?
Mm-hmm. Another reason that people might be skeptical about it, and maybe I'm in this boat at times. I would almost have to see a miracle performed by a person to start to think, oh, maybe I could do that. We've seen a lot of televangelists fake miracles over the years, and I bet that has even further reinforced our skepticism personally or in America, that some of this is, there are some people out there who are a sham, right? But there might be legit people out there too. But since we've been burned by TV evangelists at times, we're not sure, so we're testing everything so heavily. We're struggling with that skepticism. At least I am. Are you in that boat too? Like, you've seen some frauds and you're like, well, yeah, you mentioned being a hypnotist and magician. That a lot of tricks aren't as cool as they seem to the audience once you know the secret. They're still cool, but explain, what do you see in that whole televangelist thing?
I see a lot of things like cold reading. There's plants that they put in the audience. There's even examples of hypnosis used a lot of times. When they bring the person up and the guy's got his hand over him, a lot of times he's using a form of conversational hypnosis, and then when he hits them, they go under. That's why they drop. And that's very common with Pentecostals, is that practice. And I wonder, a lot of times, if the pastor is even aware of the phenomenon they're doing. Because I've been to small churches where that's happening. And I just go, well, this guy, I think, really believes in what he's doing, because he's not making a bunch of money off these people, So I wonder if it's taught in their seminaries and they don't understand fully what they're actually doing. You know, they just know
That's
a
interesting.
person is going to collapse when you hit them on the head after you go through this process with them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, there's a lot of hypnotic elements to a church experience. Even worship is a trance experience for a lot of people.
Yeah, okay, I could see the effect of that on the brain, because back to that study with Timothy Jennings, that doctor that said if you meditate on love and scriptures about love, that has a chemical effect on the brain, grows the love and compassion centers of the brain. Certain parts of the brain will repair itself. I could see when somebody gets into a meditative state during worship, that channels that same effect and that relaxation of the mind and maybe that healing process. That's interesting. Now, how to transfer that? So that's the part I am pretty certain that is a thing. Like, if I were to just think about angry thoughts all the time, that is going to physically change my brain. But you can do the reverse to heal it from trauma. I wonder what you would have to do to actually pass that energy on to someone else. If that's somewhat what Peter was doing, because love, that comes from God, and then he's channeling God to heal people. That's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, we know in neuroscience that we have something called mirror neurons that causes people to pick up on each other's emotions.
Oh, is that like women's cycles getting, on the same calendar schedule?
It's similar, yeah. But
wow.
I mean, when they talk about empaths, that's been a common subject lately. And a lot of people think that that's just a new age term, but it's really becoming more and more scientific. That there are people that are more sensitive to their mirror neurons. They can sense other people's emotions.
Interesting.
So in theory, you could project that onto another person.
Okay, because I have met people who feel like they can kind of sense another person's aura, and I always wondered if they could actually see something that's going on spiritually with a person, or if they're just reading their body language or maybe their face, But yeah, you wonder about some of those things.
Yeah. Well,
in a way, all that. Oh, I was just gonna say, in a way, maybe all of that stuff is actually connected, because I think the spiritual is connected to the physical.
Yeah. Well, we have 3 bodies, according to Franz Barton, which would be the physical, the spiritual, and the vibrational. This guy was a mystic in the early 1900s. He wrote a bunch of books about the afterlife and the astral plane and different bodies, and he actually talks about the Bible a lot in the mysticism books that he wrote. Yeah, so if you have 3 bodies and they all affect each other, everything would trickle up or down.
Is that connected to, have you heard that experiment in quantum physics where they looked at atoms or shot them through this slit, and this camera, this like light electromagnetic camera or something, it might have been one of like Einstein's designs, it actually measured or took a picture of the atom as a wave, like a light ray, not a solid atom. So then the theory became that a lot of things, or that everything is actually a wave and then it collapses into a solid form. Are you familiar with this experiment?
I have heard about that, yeah.
Because it is one of the foundational quantum physics experiments. And when I first heard about it, I was really skeptical because they could not reproduce the results with any other way of measuring this atom or wave other than with this electromagnetic camera or whatever it was. But somebody at the brewery recently mentioned that they have now confirmed and reproduced that test in other ways to confirm it. So now I'm like, oh, okay, so now maybe I'm going to have to revisit that. But that's kind of where the idea of Schrodinger's cat and some of that stuff came from. If that stuff was true, that actually kind of lines up with what you just said, because an atom has two forms. It has this wave form, which to me, that would be the vibration, and then it's got a physical form. Well, humans, I mean, we're spiritual beings, so we think that we have a soul or a spirit, a physical body, and if this experiment is true, we have a wave form, that's the vibrational form. That would be very interesting if that turned out to be accurate, because that bring a lot of different theories together.
Yeah. It's all kind of a universal theory that's expressed in many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of interesting implications to all of it.
Yeah. I figure if something like that is true, then it just kind of boils down to how God designed our world. And an experiment like that, I mean, if they've really been able to replicate that, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about it. That would just go to show how little we know about how our world works. I mean, we've learned a lot, but there's still so much more to learn.
Yeah. There's also an experiment that's done pretty commonly where they'll put sand on a speaker and they'll change the sound frequency, and the sand will arrange itself in different shapes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of like metal magnet fillings, with a magnet, and you take metal shavings, kind of like that, but without a magnet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sand. It'll just move and just form geometric shapes.
Wow.
And you can transfer it to colors. Oftentimes, I think there was an experiment where they were changing sound frequency to colors with another device.
So what happens if you play the brown note?
Anyway, yeah. So I had a thought that so if everything is vibration, and the Bible said that God spoke everything into existence, that would make a lot of sense.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. But I don't know if I want to have a debate about whether Genesis is literal or not tonight, but
yeah, that's a big topic, which I enjoy. Well, this was good, man. I appreciate your thoughts and coming on here and sharing. So thank you. Yeah, it was fun.
Problem.
We're gonna have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, just let me know.
All right. Well, you do have a YouTube channel, right? Do you want to plug that?
I do. It is Reida Transformations, and I have a lot of short, 5 to 10 minute videos about different techniques, law of attraction, and I think there's a few energy techniques on there. They're very simple, and I also discuss different coaching topics for aspiring hypnotists, or things. I talk about relationships sometimes. So if you guys want to check that out, go and look it up.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Evan. Everybody listening, that was Evan Reida, a friend of mine that I met at our brewery theology group called Beer and Spirituality. We put that on every Tuesday night in downtown Wichita. And he shows up and we all have a beer and we talk about God. It's been fun. So thank you for joining me.
It's been great.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. And if you want to follow Brewery Ministries in the different ways that we're helping people to explore faith in their homes, at breweries, and online, then head on over to breweryministries.org and sign up for the email newsletter there. All right, thanks again, and we'll see you next time.